Tonight on ABC News Live Prime, President Trump's former national security advisor indicted by a grand jury.
I think he's a bad guy. Yeah, he's a bad guy. It's too bad.
John Bolton, once a close advisor to the president, now one of his most outspoken critics, accused of mishandling classified documents, facing 18 charges. He now becomes the third high-profile Trump adversary to be indicted in less than a month.
I'm Pierre Thomas with details inside these charges, what Bolton is expected to do next.
The night before Ukrainian President Zelensky returns for a meeting at the White House, President Trump holds a high-stakes phone call with Vladimir Putin and announces plans to meet with the Russian president.
I'm Mary Bruce at the White House with a look at what these new plans could mean for the war in Ukraine.
As tensions rise in Chicago, a judge orders federal officers to wear body cameras during the sweeping immigration crackdown, and the Justice Department is pushing back.
I'm Alex Perez here in Chicago with the latest on what could be a major change for ICE agents following violent clashes with demonstrators.
Hundreds of residents in Alaska told to pack a single bag and airlift it to safety just before a catastrophic storm wiped out their town. Homes swept out to sea and loved ones missing in the aftermath. We're in Alaska with a look at the devastation. And
sí. Bueno, tenemos un jaguar.
In this corner of the Mayan jungle, the once thriving ancient city is protected by a small cavalry of park rangers and dense rainforests. We go inside our Bob Woodruff's journey to find El Mirador and the people who risk their lives to protect it.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Linsey Davis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Alex Perche in for Linsey. Thank you so much for streaming with us. And we begin with former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton firing back after a federal grand jury in Maryland indicted him on 18 counts, accusing him of mishandling classified documents, including sharing more than 1,000 pages of restricted information with his family. In a statement tonight, Bolton denied any wrongdoing and pledged to fight what he called Trump's abuse of power, saying, quote, "I have become the latest target in weaponizing the Department of Justice to charge those he deems to be his enemies with charges that were declined before or distort the facts." Bolton served in President Trump's first administration before resigning in 2019, and ever since then, he has become one of the president's most outspoken critics. In August, the FBI searched his home and office, seizing multiple documents and devices. He is the third high-profile Trump political enemy to be indicted in less than a month, following that of former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. Bolton is expected to turn himself in as soon as tomorrow. Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas has been following the story.
Tonight, for the third time in 3 weeks, the Justice Department pursuing criminal charges against one of President Trump's political enemies. First, it was former FBI Director James Comey, then New York State Attorney General Letitia James. Now the president's former national security advisor turned outspoken critic John Bolton. Tonight, Bolton indicted by a federal grand jury on 18 felony counts for alleged illegal transmission and retention of classified documents.
I think he's, a bad person. I think he's a bad guy. Yeah, he's a bad guy. It's too bad, but that's the way it goes. That's the way it goes, right?
The president has been railing against Bolton for years, ever since he published a tell-all book about his time in the administration, The Room Where It Happened.
He took classified information and he published it during a presidency. It's not, it's one thing to write a book after, during. And I believe that he's a criminal, and I believe, frankly, he should go to jail for that.
In August, federal agents searched Bolton's home in Maryland.
What were they looking for?
An office in Washington. The president insisted he knew nothing about it.
I purposely don't want to really get involved in it. I'm not a fan of John Bolton. I thought he was a sleazebag, actually.
Bolton tonight indicted for allegedly emailing more than 1,000 pages of information about his activities as national security advisors, with two members of his family in the form of diary-like entries. Prosecutors say after Bolton left office, a cyber actor believed to be associated with Iran hacked his personal email and obtained that information. Prosecutors also say documents found in Bolton's home range from sensitive to top secret and include details about a future attack by an adversarial group in another country. and details about a foreign adversary's missile launch plans, as well as plans of a covert action by the U.S. government. But Bolton's attorneys say the documents were no longer considered classified, and Bolton himself has long denied any wrongdoing.
Do you fear at all you could be prosecuted?
Look, under Donald Trump, no regular rules here apply. But I am confident that there's no national security information, no classified information in the book. I didn't intend to write anything that revealed classified information.
ABC News legal analyst Brian Buckmeyer joins me now for more on this. And Brian, this indictment is considerably more detailed than the ones we've seen for other Trump political enemies. But I'm curious, how would you compare this case to the ones brought against former FBI Director James Comey and also New York Attorney General Letitia James?
Yes, like a lot more detail, not just in the size of this 26-page indictment, but also in terms of the timeline leading up to it. But I will say, don't assume that just because this is a more detailed indictment, there's a lot more here that was presented to the grand jury or in terms of evidence. That's not really an indicator. But what stuck out to me is all of the avenues in which the prosecutor in this case is nullifying how John Bolton can say, I didn't know. There are multiple arguments here that the prosecutor is making that shows that he had knowledge and willfully committed this act. I think kind of cutting off any avenue for an argument. And the other thing that stuck out to me as well is, even though we're talking about this memoir, this book that John Bolton wrote, within this indictment, it says that none of the 18 counts in the indictment are associated with information that came out from the memoir. Instead, it's about information that was allegedly sent to 2 individuals within his family, as well as this alleged leak that Iran might have picked up.
Well, and let's talk about these search warrants for a minute. The FBI was able to obtain search warrants for both his home and his office, which they executed back in August. What does that tell you about the government's case?
Tells us what they obtained in the search warrant, and that 2 things. One, the level of information that they were able to obtain these warrants being probable cause, the same level of proof or information they need in order to indict someone, a judge already signed off on. And so at least there's 2 levels of assurity that one, a judge and a grand jury believe there was enough information to go forward on this case. The other thing that it shows me as well is that they got what they were looking for. They had an investigation. They believed there would be incriminating information. And according to this indictment, they found it. That makes for a very strong prosecutorial case.
Well, and Brian, the other thing, President Trump has been very vocal in pushing the DOJ to bring charges against Bolton. So how could the president's own words complicate a potential prosecution here?
So we actually saw this, if we can go back just a few weeks ago, in the James Comey case when he was arraigned. We're likely to see the same thing in the Letitia James's case, where there were arguments of what's called vindictive prosecution, that these were politically motivated cases. Because of the president's very outspoken words, the fact that this was investigated both in the Biden administration, they decided to drop it for whatever reason they had there, and then picked up again by President Donald Trump, and then now even pushed because of President Donald Trump. I would imagine that Abby Lowell will be making the same arguments, if not similar arguments, as James Comey and Letitia James, that this is a vindictive prosecution, not one born out of facts, but born out of politics. Well, and Brian, what's the timeline for Bolton's case here? So I would imagine they're going to want to get this done sooner rather than later. I would imagine that this is going to be a trial in 2026, but there is a lot of information. This involves a lot more classified information. So attorneys, lawyers, people associated with this case are going to have to be given some level of security clearance to be able to look at these documents, make this case. All of that makes for a little bit of a more drawn-out proceeding than we would see in the Comey or James case. I would think that in a year's time, maybe a year and a half, if this does go to trial, that's when we see opening statements. If not, this is a tough case. As Pierre Thomas said, he's facing decades in prison, actually 10 years for each one of those 18 counts. That's 180 years. The strength of this indictment might suggest that there would be a plea deal or a plea agreement that one would seek out. But yeah, a year and a half, it could go to trial unless it's resolved sooner than that. All right, Brian Buckmeyer, thank you. And President Trump spoke with Vladimir Putin today, and the president now says he will meet with Putin in Hungary to end the war in Ukraine. The call comes one day before Zelensky arrives at the White House to ask for U.S.-made Tomahawk missiles against a new Russian offensive. Our Mary Bruce is at the White House.
Just 2 months after his Alaska summit with Vladimir Putin failed to yield results, and with Russia intensifying its bombing of Ukraine and flying drones over NATO countries, President Trump tonight says he plans to meet with Putin again in the coming weeks, this time in Hungary.
I think Alaska actually set a stage, and that wasn't very long ago, but it set a stage.
Trump today speaking on the phone with Putin for more than 2 hours. Tomorrow he'll meet with Ukrainian President Zelensky at the White House. Zelensky has been asking Trump for powerful Tomahawk missiles capable of striking deep inside of Russia, something Trump said he discussed with Putin today.
I did actually say, would you mind if I gave a couple of thousand Tomahawks to your opposition? I did say that to him. I said it just that way. He didn't like the idea.
And Mary Bruce joins us now from the White House. And Mary, so many people remember that one Oval Office meeting with Zelensky back in February that was so fiery. I'm curious, what can we expect tomorrow? And also, when is the president expected to meet with Putin?
Well, we certainly, Alex, will be watching the tone of this meeting very carefully. Zelensky today arriving in Washington for that Oval Office meeting tomorrow. As for Trump's sit down with Putin, the president says his top advisors will meet with their Russian counterparts next week. Trump saying that his face-to-face with Putin will come shortly after. Alex.
All right, Mary Bruce, thank you. And President Trump with a new warning to Hamas to stop the bloodshed in Gaza. The president posting on social media, quote, "If Hamas continues to kill people in Gaza, which was not the deal, we will have no choice but to go in and kill them." The president is making it clear he has limited patience for violence in Gaza as Hamas returns to the streets. This warning comes after video verified by ABC News appears to show Hamas gunmen carrying out a public execution. And 24 hours after a U.S. military strike on an alleged drug boat out of Venezuela, the Trump administration is now escalating its operations with a major show of force. 3 American B-52 bombers and special operations helicopters flew near the coast of Venezuela. Here's ABC's chief global affairs correspondent Martha Raddatz with more.
Tonight, just 48 hours after the newest U.S. attack on a boat off Venezuela, we're learning of a massive show of military force off Venezuela's coast. ABC News confirming 3 nuclear-capable B-52 heavy bombers flew for hours in the Caribbean waters less than 90 miles from Venezuela. The move comes in the midst of a major U.S. military buildup in the region of some 10,000 U.S. troops, including special operations helicopters, the kind used by Navy SEALs and Delta Force, now conducting exercises in the Caribbean. The U.S. military has already launched at least 5 deadly airstrikes on what the administration claims are boats operated by drug cartels, with President Trump now authorizing CIA missions in Venezuela and threatening ground strikes as well.
We have a lot of drugs coming in from Venezuela, and a lot of the Venezuelan drugs come in through the sea, so you get to see that. But we're going to stop them by land also.
Trump blames Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro for drugs coming into the U.S. and is trying to pressure him to step down. The administration offering $50 million for information leading to his arrest and conviction on drug charges. And tonight, Alex, we are learning that Admiral Alvin Halsey, who is overseeing these operations, is stepping down. He's been on the job for less than a year. He is one of numerous senior officers who have resigned or been kicked out by Secretary Pete Hegseth since President Trump took office. Alex?
All right, Martha, thank you. And there's a major policy change tonight amid rising tensions between ICE agents and protesters in Chicago. After a neighborhood car chase and ramming 2 days ago, residents threw objects at Border Patrol and then were tear gassed. A judge has now ordered immigration officers to wear body cameras, but the Justice Department is pushing back. Here's Alex Perez in Chicago.
After seeing these images of violent clashes in Chicago ending with tear gas used on protesters, tonight a judge says federal agents who have body cameras must wear them during the Trump administration's sweeping immigration crackdown. U.S. District Judge Sarah Ellis saying she is deeply concerned with apparent violations of her earlier order restricting the use of force and riot control weapons, after video showed ICE agents striking a minister in the head with pepper balls. If you've got a bunch of peaceful protesters, then you can't shoot them in the head. You can't deploy tear gas. You can't use flashbang grenades. You can't drive a car through a crowd. The judge pointing to this Border Patrol chase through a neighborhood that ended with this pit maneuver. Chicago residents and protesters are now documenting more encounters.
He's a citizen! He's a citizen! You don't know what's going on, so get the back!
Illinois' governor, who hasn't asked for federal help, today praised the judge's order.
The federal agents are required to have body cameras on them because they clearly lie about what goes on.
And Alex, the judge has also ordered the field director of ICE here in Chicago to appear before the court and answer questions on Monday. Alex?
Alex Perez, thank you. And mass evacuations are underway in Alaska following a devastating storm. Hundreds of residents packed onto military planes, many flown to safety in Anchorage after entire communities were cut off by flooding. This home could be seen floating away while many others are destroyed or damaged. Chief National Correspondent Matt Gutman has more.
Tonight, after powerful storms packing 100-mile-per-hour winds swept parts of entire towns into the Bering Sea, that massive military effort in Alaska to get hundreds out of harm's way. This Boeing C-17 crammed with 300 evacuees, touching down at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson in Anchorage overnight. Families, some with small children, some in wheelchairs, pouring out. The National Guard calling it one of the biggest airlift operations in Alaska history. The storms fueled by remnants of a typhoon that tore across the Pacific, barreling into western Alaska over the weekend. That devastating storm surge flooding the towns of Kipnuk and Quigillingok. Tribal administrator Tristan Carl watched his uncle's home being swept away.
And I saw my cousin and my nephew in there, and I never heard panicking or yelling like that ever before.
This is the damage left behind in Kipnuk, the surging sea turning already melting permafrost into muck. And the only way out? By air. Coast Guard helicopters hoisting dozens of residents out of the floodwaters. The woman who shot this video says her home is now gone.
And Matt Gutman joins us now. Matt, what are we hearing about any injuries or fatalities reported so far?
Alex, that monster storm so far has left one person dead, 2 people missing. We don't yet know about injuries, and that's because officials in Alaska are calling this a very dynamic situation, so much so that they are still right now in the process of evacuating another couple of hundred people on those aircraft from those outlying areas to Anchorage. Alex.
All right, Matt, thanks for that update. Today, for the 10th time, the Senate failed to advance a government funding bill, meaning the government shutdown is expected to drag into next week. So let's get into the impact on people and government services with ABC News Washington Bureau Chief Rick Klein. Rick, it's great to see you in person, especially here in New York. But a lot of people directly impacted by this shutdown.
Yeah, and you start with the people that have lost their jobs through this, because usually we talk about furloughs, we talk about people that won't get paid until the shutdown is over. There's at least 4,000 people that have been outright fired, taken out of the workforce entirely. Those firings may be challenged in court, but if you look at these agencies, we've done reporting on this, the Department of Commerce, Education, particularly hard hit, Energy Department, they're upping the ante there, HHS, HUD, Treasury Department, 4,000 and counting. That's the layoffs. Those are the people that right now stand at real risk of never getting the jobs back, even if the government were to reopen.
Well, and so there's also been a lot of questions about services that are already not available to Americans because of the shutdown.
Exactly. And the longer a shutdown goes on, the more that you see this impact on services. Just to tick through a few, air traffic controllers, they are actually required to work, but because they're not getting paid, a lot of them are calling in sick. And that's meant staffing shortages, which means a real problem at some airports.
They're considered essential employees.
They're essential employees, but they can call in sick if they're not getting paid, and that's been a problem. This whole issue of telehealth appointments, that's a big thing that's happened just since the COVID era. People on Medicare can get those telehealth appointments. Those are now almost impossible to get, except under very rare circumstances. Other things like natural disaster funding, FEMA funds, those things are in peril if it goes longer. Right now, there's not going to be a long-term danger that you wouldn't get the money, but there's going to be delays in processing. Well,
and the other thing, I know you've been tracking some of the questions that people have. What are people asking about the shutdown?
This is so interesting to me because it really tells you how people interact with the government. We dove through some of the trending questions on this. People wanted to know, can I get a passport during a government shutdown? The answer is yes, you can. The Postal Service, the passport offices are open. It may take longer, so if you're going to travel internationally, you may want to take care of that. Can I still get food stamps during a shutdown? The SNAP program, which is known often as food stamps, is continuing at least through this month, but states are already starting to notify people that if this stretches into November, there may be some states that are administering the program that don't have the funding, don't have the financing, and they may be curtailed at some point if this goes a month or longer. And our tax returns delayed because of the government shutdown. People are always worried about this. It's not tax season, right? But people do still file taxes off season. And if you're looking to file now and you do a paper return, pretty much forget about it getting processed anytime soon. If you need phone support, things like that, it won't happen. Look, if we're still talking about a shutdown in the spring when we're in tax season, we're talking about truly uncharted territory. But for now, at least, people will be able to get their refunds and their returns.
All right, Rick Klein, always nice to see you.
Thanks, Alex.
The three candidates vying to become New York City's next mayor squared off in their first debate ahead of November's election. Progressive Democrat Zohran Mamdani is considered the frontrunner with a double-digit lead in the polls. He defeated former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo in the Democratic primary in June. Cuomo is now running as an independent, and Republican Curtis Sliwa was also on stage tonight.
When Donald Trump sent ICE agents on people in Los Angeles, Andrew Cuomo said that New Yorkers need not overreact. That is the furthest answer that New Yorkers are looking for. They are looking for someone who will lead, someone who will say that they will have their back, someone who will actually fight for the people of this city. And that's who I am, because I'm not funded by the same donors that gave us Donald Trump's second term, which isn't something that Andrew Cuomo can say.
Election Day is less than 3 weeks away. And 3 leading U.S. universities, including President Trump's alma mater, have now joined MIT in rejecting his administration's higher education compact. The University of Pennsylvania and the University of Southern California say today that they will not sign the compact. They joined Brown University. The compact requires universities to take staunch efforts against DEI initiatives and to quell campus protests in exchange for priority federal funding. Critics, including the American Federation of Teachers, have likened the compact to a loyalty oath. And now to the Florida couple who authorities say were dragged out of their car and robbed after thieves used Apple AirTags to track them. ABC's Aaron Katersky has the story.
2 men are behind bars after this terrifying kidnapping and burglary. You can see one of the men in an orange vest waiting in the driveway for a couple to return to their Odessa, Florida home. He and his partner then ripped the couple from their car and forced them into their garage. Police say the men intended to rob the couple and knew when they'd be back because they attached a tracking device to their car.
These 2 criminals used an AirTag to monitor and surveil these victims. There are sophisticated criminals out here, and they do use these type of devices. If you do receive some sort of notification that you have no idea about, be cognizant of that and notify us.
The AirTag also turned out to help investigators identify the suspects.
Can you just step out in the car real quick for me?
One of them, Lewis Charles, is seen in this police body camera video being stopped and arrested. Both men are now facing charges of armed burglary, armed kidnapping, and assault.
Our thanks to Aaron. Chrysler announcing a recall of nearly 300,000 Dodge Darts because of a rollaway risk. All of the models are from the 2013 to 2016 years. The company says a defect may prevent the vehicle from shifting into park. A similar recall was issued in 2019, but officials say the recall didn't resolve the issue. Chrysler says owners will have to return to the dealer for another repair. And coming up after the break, video captures a moment a grain silo collapses, why the fallout impacted the entire city. Plus, as vaccination rates decline, epidemiologists are worried measles could spread more this fall. What we're learning about the latest outbreak. And saying goodbye to a rock legend. Founding KISS member Ace Frehley has died. What his family is saying about his final moments and his lasting legacy with tracks like New York Groove. Welcome back. As temperatures across the country continue to tumble as we head into the latter part of fall, health officials are concerned we'll see an increase in measles outbreaks, and that's because we'll be spending more time indoors, thus increasing the likelihood of transmission. The recent outbreaks and how we can protect ourselves from the next one is tonight's By the Numbers. The CDC recommends children receive 2 doses of the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine. Those 2 doses are 97% effective in preventing infection. Texas had the biggest outbreak this year with more than 750 cases, and the latest outbreak in Spartanburg County, South Carolina, has already infected 12 people with a highly contagious virus. Nearly 140 students there remain quarantined. At one local school, just 17% of the over 600 students there have their required immunizations. It's a far cry from the 95% vaccination rate typically required to prevent community outbreaks. The county level vaccination rate in the U.S. is now well below that at just 91%, according to researchers at Johns Hopkins who recently studied data from more than 2,000 counties. And joining us now to discuss concerns for future measles outbreaks is medical correspondent for ABC News, Dr. Darian Sutton. It's good to see you in person.
Good to see you too.
So first off, Dr. Sutton, can you please remind us how contracting measles is no walk in the park?
Yeah, it's important to understand that measles is arguably the most contagious virus that currently exists. For one infected person, Alex, to understand this, that person will infect 9 out of 10 people who are not vaccinated, which is why these precautions and quarantines are taking place. And that virus can last in the air for hours after that infected person has left the room. Now, in terms of symptoms to watch out for, the rash obviously is something that we all know to be true, but it could also include cough and conjunctivitis or redness to the eyes. And those symptoms can develop about 1 to 2 weeks after the exposure, but even it can last longer, which is why the 21-day protocol is instituted in South Carolina to try to blunt the spread of this virus.
Well, and I think, it's not just the near-term impacts, it's also the long-term effects of this. So what are the long-term effects of contracting the virus? And one can actually die from an infection here.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's so much more than just a rash, just a cough, and just a fever. 1 out of 5 children who get this infection will be hospitalized. 1 out of 20 will get pneumonia. And as numbers rise, we'll begin to see the rare outcomes of this measles infection, which can include things like encephalitis. And even, Alex, many people do not know about this, a complication called a panencephalitis or sclerosing panencephalitis that can develop up to 7 years after the virus has receded. And that risk can remain with that child, again, for close to 7 years. And that diagnosis in and of itself is fatal. So it's so important to understand that this is so much more than just a rash.
Wow. And so this is something that I know a lot of parents are curious about. Are there any side effects after getting the vaccine?
Yeah, important to talk about with any vaccine. The MMR vaccine, the most common side effects are soreness in the area of the injection, sometimes a fever, sometimes joint pain. What is not a side effect, which is important to understand, is autism. That has been refuted and understood in terms of the large peer-reviewed studies that we've done. There is no association with getting vaccinated and the outcome of autism.
Well, and does immunity hold up over time for adults?
Yeah, so 2 vaccines can provide you 97% effectiveness, and that effectiveness can last for lifelong. Now, important to understand, if you've not gotten 2 doses, or if you have an immune-compromised state, for example, if you're undergoing cancer treatments, then you can talk to your provider about testing for a titer level to see and check your immunity.
All right, so CDC has some guidelines on who should get the measles vaccine and also when, right?
Yeah. So the measles vaccine is a part of the MMR vaccination. That stands for measles, mumps, and rubella. And that's recommended for children to get their first dose around the first year of life and their second dose right before kindergarten starts. Now, important to understand, if you've missed these doses or for one reason or another you haven't been able to be up to date, you can talk to your provider and get those doses at any point during your lifetime. So important to understand, because these vaccinations are what stop the spread of outbreaks. So far this year, we've seen at least 44 outbreaks. That's almost triple the number that we've seen last year. So important to understand, we've got at least 286,000 kindergarten students that are not up to date on their vaccinations.
All right, Dr. Sutton, good info as always. I appreciate you.
Of course.
And coming up after the break, we're taking you to an amazing world few of us will ever be fortunate enough to visit. I'm talking about El Mirador National Park in Guatemala. Our Bob Woodruff explores the ancient Mayan city hidden there. And a dog's disobedience leads to a dangerous situation, how he almost burned down this home. El Mirador National Park lies in Guatemala's corner of the Mayan jungle. Under its dense canopy, this park hides an ancient Mayan city protected by a small group of park rangers. Here's a sneak peek of Bob Woodruff's journey to find El Mirador from the season premiere of the ABC News Live original, Last Lands.
Ah, sí. Bueno, tenemos un jaguar. El rey de la selva. En verdadero nombre en Maya Itza es Baalan.
Jaguars here are considered gods.
Que en la cultura maya, el Balán es el protector tanto espiritual como cósmico.
For Pulga Garcia, his work as a ranger has been a spiritual mission. His boss Paco has been protecting this park for nearly 2 decades.
You get jaguars everywhere.
I love jaguars.
My office is a small one. I don't spend too much time here. Most of the time I'm on the field.
What do your kids think about what you're doing?
They love it. They feel proud of me because what I do.
Paco's full name is Francisco Asturias.
Orale.
He runs this team of 6.
You've been threatened already.
All of them are threatened. All of them. They are the ones who do the real job. They're the ones that take people to jail.
They tried to get asylum to get to the United States. Is a threat from the cartels.
Hunters, illegal loggers.
Anybody that's being stopped by them want to kill them.
They call themselves the Genesis Team. They stand on the front lines between this park and all of the threats that surround them.
You can see that each one of them have body protection, as if they're going to war, not into a national park.
There are only 3 ways to get into Guatemala's Mirador National Park: charter a helicopter, take a grueling 3-day hike, or the way these rangers do it. Spend 2 days on ATVs packed with gear and food.
We're going to pack up this ATV, and then the rest of the team, we're going to follow each other up the road to finally get to the pyramids. So it's going to be long. Let's just say we're going to get a little car sick, I think.
Bit brutal just getting in here, deep in the mud, skidding around, almost flipped it over a couple times. This is a lot harder to get in here, I think, than I expected. Let's put it that way. 2 of the vehicles at least have problems. One's got to be towed by the rope just to get it through the muck. We have to push. Now we're all just completely covered with mud. So this has been quite a test.
Wow. I didn't think I was going to make it. This is what vacation's about.
We made it through. The next one's coming up. I think they barely made it. So you can see what it is. Got nothing, but I can't see it. Part of my eye. Get off the road. Get through. Hey! Wow! After 12 hours, we will break for the night at a ranger outpost, 2/3 of the way there. Mirador National Park was founded in 1990.
The goal was to protect these forests and also to protect these Maya archaeological sites from deforestation and from looting.
Marcos Rezo now leads the effort to protect Mirador with Paco and his rangers.
So human pressure is increasing.
Cattle farmers, loggers, hunters are all looking to spill over into Mirador National Park, often coming into conflict with the rangers. The people seen here were arrested by Paco and his rangers earlier this year, caught clearing parts of the park.
There is no more land to grab. If they keep on grabbing land, they'll destroy the archaeological sites, they'll encroach national parks, and they'll go into Mexico, right? There's no more land to conquer.
De una la vamos a poner en la sombra. La verdad es lamentable. Te das cuenta, tenemos que improvisar. No tenemos los recursos. Ahí está. La verdad, la selva está pidiendo auxilio. Pero nosotros hacemos lo que podemos. Seguimos cuidando y protegiendo la poca biodiversidad que tenemos. Está bien pegado este. Y sobre todo protegemos la selva.
If we stop doing our job, it will be very sad news. Saddest thing is we're running out of money. Everything we have been constructing in the past 19 years to take care of a national park, it will fall away.
Our thanks to Bob Woodruff for that. And Last Lands will be available tonight on Disney Plus and on Hulu. And coming up, it's a growing prank on social media using AI. People are messaging their loved ones pretending a stranger is in their home. White police say it might all seem like it's in good fun, but it's a big problem. And country singer Priscilla Block tells us why her new album may be her most personal yet. Back in the New York groove, KISS founding member and lead guitarist Ace Frehley has died. The rock superstar's family says that he passed away peacefully, surrounded by his family after a recent fall at home. Frehley helped form the iconic rock band KISS in the early 1970s, alongside Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, and Peter Criss. A Grammy nominee and a Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, Ace Frehley was 74. And you may have seen how full body scans are becoming more accessible. And now some at-home scales can tell us more than just pounds and ounces. They can track body composition from your body fat to bone density to lean muscle mass. ABC's Becky Worley has details.
This is a DEXA scan. It's a low-dose X-ray that measures my lean tissue, like muscle, that's the red you see in the scan, my fat tissue in blue, and it quantifies the density of my bones. It takes about 5 minutes, and you can now get these scans without a doctor's order for as little as $50.
So the results are in?
Orthopedic sports surgeon Dr. Vonda Wright is a big fan.
It's important for us to know what our body composition is, in particular, how much muscle mass we have, because there's a difference between what we weigh and what we're composed of.
I learned that my bone density is pretty good. Visceral fat, that's the type of fat around your organs that can lead to health challenges. I'm okay there. But for me, a huge focus of my workouts has been building lean muscle. Since I got a DEXA scan last year too, I can see I've actually lost muscle mass, which is honestly disheartening considering I've worked really hard on this.
What do you recommend for people who are a little afraid of their results?
When people are afraid of the numbers they might find in a DEXA scan or the scale, I want to remind them that the numbers themselves are not judgments.
Instead, Dr. Wright says this info is infinitely helpful in prioritizing lifestyle choices.
You can't know where you're going unless you know where you are. But data demands action.
Screening guidelines support bone density screening for women over 65 and men over 70, often paid for by insurance. Even though many, including Dr. Wright, think earlier intervention is helpful to improve bone health. And while DEXA scans are getting more affordable and accessible, they aren't the only way to assess body composition.
You can see that I'm putting my feet directly on these contacts, the electrodes.
In-body machines are found in many gyms and clinics. They use bioelectrical impedance to calculate lean mass and body fat, though they don't give you bone density data.
It's not like you feel electrical current going through you.
And this same technology is used for at-home scales that measure body fat. The results may not be as accurate as the DEXA scan, but Dr. Wright says all of these devices can be valuable to track progress.
You can use the trends over a month or over a quarterly period because data in itself, frankly, is a little useless, but it's data in action that can change your life.
Police warn that a prank may be nothing to laugh at. A Picasso painting disappears on its way to an exhibit, and the governor who brought in more than $1 million from gambling. Those stories and more in tonight's rundown. A viral trend involving artificially generated images of a so-called homeless man has prompted police warnings over safety concerns, with officials calling it stupid and potentially dangerous. The trend uses AI image generators to create realistic photos depicting a disheveled man appearing to be at someone's door or inside their home. The pranksters message the photo to loved ones pretending it's real. Police departments in Michigan, New York, and Wisconsin say the prank diverts real resources to fake emergencies. Officials say that pranksters could even face charges for reporting non-existent emergencies. Dramatic video shows a grain silo on an Illinois farm collapsing, spilling about 30,000 bushels of soybeans and downing nearby power lines. An ambulance headed to an unrelated call noticed a bulge forming and alerted local officials, who evacuated the area before the collapse. Officials say no injuries were reported. Spanish police are investigating the disappearance of a tiny Picasso painting being transported from Madrid to the southern city of Granada. The small picture, titled in Spanish, which translates to Still Life with Guitar, measures approximately 5 by 4 inches. It's owned by a private collector who loaned the work out to an exhibition. Curators notice its absence after unpacking the transport van. A dog chewed its way into a charger and nearly set the house on fire. You can see it here as the 5-year-old dog Colton backs up from the battery as it starts to smoke and then bursts into flames. The owner says Colton is okay and only the rug was ruined by the fire. But firefighters say this serves as a reminder to properly store your lithium batteries. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker reported at least $1.4 million in additional income from gambling, according to tax summaries released by his campaign. Asked about the casino windfall, the governor said it was a stroke of luck.
I went on vacation with my wife, with some friends. I was incredibly lucky, you have to be, to end up ahead, frankly, going to a casino anywhere.
The billionaire heir to the Hyatt hotel fortune also reported a net worth approaching $4 billion. Pritzker's campaign said he'll be donating more than $1 million of those winnings to charity. And model Jasmine Tukes, who's currently expecting her second child, opened the 2025 Victoria's Secret's fashion show, showing off her pregnancy in a gold-netted dress with white jewels and an oversized structured shell ornamentation. She was joined by many other models, influencers, and WNBA player Angel Reese on the runway. Tonight's Prime Playlist Shuffle, where we sit down with artists who are transforming the music industry. Country singer Priscilla Block has built a massive following, often by turning hardship into empowerment through her always relatable lyrics. And get this, she's twice been nominated for New Female Artist of the Year by the Academy of Country Music Awards. And her first platinum certified hit, Just About Over You, was nominated for Breakthrough Video of the Year in 2022 by the CMT Music Awards. And Priscilla is now letting fans in on an even more personal side of her story with her sophomore album, Things You Didn't See, featuring her single by the same name. Let's take a listen.
You see the highlights, the midnights, the beer and gasoline. See the golden, wide open road just running down a dream. Everybody's got a hurting heart they're hiding underneath. You think that you know me, but how about all the things you didn't see?
And Priscilla joins us now. It's so nice to meet you.
So nice to meet you. I've been looking forward to this. That was such a sweet intro. Thank you.
Of course. We wanted to roll out the red carpet. But listen, I know we just met, but there was a line from the song that really kind of stood out to me. You say, everybody's got a hurting heart they're hiding underneath. And I'm so curious, I mean, how do you use your hurting heart of the past to fuel your creativity here?
You know, this record for me was my chance to let people in on parts of my life that they don't know about. And I'm very open online. I'm like kind of a what you see is what you get girl, but there's so many parts of me that a lot of people haven't seen, whether that's the insecurities that I've faced, where I come from, the love in my life. You know, there's always something deeper to somebody, and, you know, people have gone through a lot, and there's always so much hiding underneath.
Okay. I know you've talked about this before, but I have to ask you. A couple years back,
yes,
you weren't too happy in Nashville. You were thinking about moving away. And then you had a chance encounter with somebody that our viewers may be familiar with, Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift.
Will you tell me about, like, how did that play out? What happened?
So I was in Nashville for about a year. I moved there when I was 17 years old with $50 to my name. I've been in Nashville for 11 years now. And I was a year into town. I remember I called my sister that morning and I was like, hey, I think I'm gonna come home. I don't know where to start. I'm depressed. I can barely pay my bills. And she was like, Priscilla, you can come home, like, you haven't failed. And so that day I was leaving work and I happened to be wearing a Taylor Swift t-shirt, and she was driving by and saw me, and she pulled her car over and was like, hey, like, I love your shirt. And I'm just standing there and I'm like, and she's like, you can come over here. I'm like looking like a deer in headlights. And we talked for a minute. I never told her I did music. And I just looked at her and I was like, thank you so much. Like, I needed this more than you know. And that was the day that I quit my job. I quit school. And I was like, I'm going to go and figure out how to do this thing. And I put every ounce that I had into music. Any time that I had, I was all in.
Yeah, well, and people are relating. I want to run some numbers by you. You've got a loyal fan base of more than 5 million people. You've earned more than 700 million global streams. And so when you look back on that little girl growing up in Raleigh, North Carolina, what advice would you give other young children who are in similar situations?
Man, I think it's staying the course, and it's not letting anyone try and alter like who you are. Like, everyone's voice is so powerful and everyone's story is different. And really, when things started happening for me was when I just started being unapologetically Priscilla. And I wasn't trying to be the next Taylor Swift with my guitar, because there's already a Taylor Swift. And when I really started embracing my personality and what makes me me and putting that in my music, that's really when things started working out. But also the hustle, you got to have that in you. Like, you know what I mean? You got to want it and knock down some doors. And anyone that tells you no, you're asking the wrong person. That's exactly what I would say. I've got a lot to say to younger Priscilla.
I love it. I love it. Priscilla, great advice. It's so nice to meet you.
Oh my gosh, so nice to meet you. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, of course. And you can listen to Priscilla Block's new album, Things You Didn't See, wherever you stream your music. And her tour kicks off next week in Florida. And that is our show for this hour. I'm Alex Perche. Stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thank you for streaming with us.